turn my camera a certain way today. So if I look a little narrow on your screen, it's because, reason, YouTube wants to orient it this way. Go figure. But today we will press on with Ahavas Chesed. I will search for an answer as to why I have to be oriented in the narrow frame. But I digress. For today, we will discuss the mitzvah of making sure people who have really reached rock bottom, they are strengthened in order to prevent them from chas v'chalila becoming completely destitute. So up until now, says Ahavas Chaim, we have been talking about what he calls stam gemilas chasadim, literally his words, which is what? Sheha'adam meitiv lechavero, something good that you do for your friend. But now there is another area, another focal point that will be grouped over here. If there's a Venn diagram, this is another part of it. The person whose hand has lost strength. Okay? And with the loan that you will give him, you will bring him back to strength again. They should not basically crumble and then become completely destitute and require food from the local food bank. Okay, so that's basically what it comes down to. This is much bigger. He says bigger. This is, or it's greater, however you want to translate that, from your average case of chesed. Because here's where it says, basically, Ki yamuch achicha umata yado. Okay, it says that this is exactly your friend has become most destitute, and you will strengthen him through this practice. Okay. Excuse me a second. Some of my lines disappeared over here, and then you will give him, and they will live with you and be able to settle and live with you. Excuse me, and live with you successfully. Okay. So the way that it works would be the following way. He gives an example from the Gemara. He says, the poor person comes to you and he says, give me a job. If you give him a job, great. If not, then you basically say, take a look and see what Hashem has given us. So meaning the one who made me have money has also made you poor. Just to basically say, you should try to really force yourself to give to them so that that your own worth isn't fully through your own endeavors, but from what Hashem has given you. And you've been given help as well, so therefore it's important that you know that they are in this position because they are in need of help for whatever reason. So therefore, just like Hashem has helped you, you should look to help this person who is in significant dire need. And that way both of you should live together and be successful. And that's what it means, it says, v'chai imach, and it should live with you. And so if Hashem has given you enough profit that you could help this destitute person be successful, great. And that's exactly how you should look at it. And you should look at it as if Hashem and this person have given both of you sustenance. And that's how you should look at it. Now, the next statement over here, he develops further. If you, not just you give him the loan, but now you find him a position, or even just labor, okay? Or you hire him for some labor for yourself, or for some position where he can apply his skills. That's the same thing. So you don't have to just give him money, but it's the same thing that giving a job to the poor is the same thing as giving him a loan. The point is that you're able to strengthen him somehow, so so that he doesn't become destitute in his poverty. Whatever each person needs in terms of their capabilities, because sometimes you'll help some people, you'll help them get a job, and what that's going to do is it's going to actually initiate other people to follow suit, and they're going to look to either bring this person in or bring in others to help them with their things as well. And he says further, and I see certain people, God-fearing, okay, what they do is when they give out these loans to the poor people, so, and it is chesed, so they basically make it on condition that they have to pay the whole thing off, that they should not have to pay the whole thing off at one time. And they should do a little bit on a weekly basis. And this is still a big chesed, okay? Because these people are very much in need. And so through this, you're able to keep them going, and you're also giving them the ability to repay you. And that's how they're going to remain, or that's how they're able to maintain, either remain stable or maintain their stability. Which is not the same thing as when you're forced to pay me back, give me all the money at one time, because that's going to make them poor again. The expectation to give back all the money in one shot is going to be very difficult. And we find a case like this in the Gemara. This Gemara is on Daf Daled in Avodah Zarah. When a person gives his beloved friend, 1,000 zuz, let's say it's like $1,000, maybe more than that. Let's just call it $1,000 in zuz. So collect it a little bit at a time. Okay, that's what the Gemara says. And this we learn from business owners themselves. They do this themselves in order to not crush them through the repayment of their loans. And so therefore, they will be able to keep some of their money and pay back some of their money. And therefore, everyone is going to benefit from this practice, because you're going to get accustomed to doing loans in this way, meaning a large amount with very small repayment amounts weekly or something like that. Okay? And so people who are crying out, we have lots of needs, you're going to be able to sustain them in this fashion. And that is going to satisfy what Hashem wanted for you to do with this mitzvah. And the crown of a good name in this instance is that you are crowned by Hashem for all of these good deeds, like extending these small loans. We'll probably call them like a working loan, meaning you pay back from what you work. So that's, you take it from the principal. So that would be a loan that kind of pays back as an apportionment of what you are earning. Okay? And that would be one way to keep things going strong. And the Ahavas Chaim says further, there is a Mishnah like this. It's in Pirkei Avos, chapter 4, Mishnah 12. It says, Keter Shem Tov Ola Al Gabehen, that having the good crown of the good name is the greatest thing you could have. It talks about having Keter Torah, Keter Kahuna. The crown of a good name, Zemuchubad. This is the honorable thing to have. So much more than having people say, oh, look at this guy, he's got all this money to lend, big deal. It should be about how much money he has to lend. It should be about how much tzedakah and how much chesed he's extending to keep these people from collapsing. And a person who conducts himself in this way, they're going to fulfill the following verse. The verse says in Tehillim, this is 41:2. It says, Ashrei maskil eldal b'yom ra'ah yimalteu Hashem. Great or praiseworthy is the one who takes notice, an intelligent notice of the poor person on his evil day, meaning on the day that he's in greatest need. Hashem will save them. So the point of this verse is to consider just how difficult and how humbled the poor person is in their current position. So it's entirely possible that you are able to draw him out of his destitute and low area, and his poverty, his entrance into poverty. And the ideas contained in this verse are great. So we're going to explain them in greater detail in section 3 when we talk about the things necessary to keep people from becoming destitute. We're almost there, because part 2 is almost up. We don't have only a few more chapters left. And this wonderful custom that we have just discussed, it's not limited to one person. It's good for one person to do. But if you're able to expand that into a broader public wheel, even better. And the Ahavas says, I have seen this in a number of holy cities. We're going to take a holy group of people. He keeps using the word holy. I'm not making it up. And they're going to conduct themselves with looking after the people who are in the greatest need. And they call the name of these groups a Somech Noflim, just like you see in Ashrei by the letter Samech, okay? And it says, why? Because they give strength and support to those people who are on the verge of collapse. Why? Because they don't want them, God forbid, as we said at the beginning of this chapter, to completely crumble and collapse underneath their financial burdens. And also, this is how they conduct themselves, by lending out the money for a small amount to be paid back based on whatever rules that they determine. And they keep the payments kind of low, so that way it's not too difficult for people to pay back a little bit every week. They also appoint one single person, whether that person is either volunteer or they're salaried, and they're part of this Somech Noflim group. And what they do is they collect the money a little bit from all the lenders. And that's actually how I've seen this. This is me meta-analyzing. I've seen this also with this is how Gemilas Chasadim work as well. That there's a director who goes ahead and keeps track of the money coming in. Another important thing that we see here with making sure that we take care of the people who are in the most dire situations is not just giving them the ability to get these loans and strengthen them, as we said. Okay, that's good. All right, that's just like the mitzvah tzedakah. Okay, and we see that this is actually a mitzvah mentioned in a number of places. Okay, because there is a mitzvah of chesed, even up until the time when you finally get paid back, because you're doing not only we have done something nice for the borrower. Okay, so the idea is that he quotes the Gemara that a person gets back the extension of their charity based on how much chesed they put into it, how much they looked at helping this person get out of the situation. So now he says, look at the halacha. The halacha says in your Deya is 249.6. If you give a gift to a person who is really on their last legs, right? They're running out of money, and by giving them this money, they are emboldened to be more successful. That is the same mitzvah as this. So therefore, a person should be very careful that if they do have some person who comes up to them, well, let's say he gives the example, they lose their animal. Okay, let's say it's a pack animal and they can't pack it anymore because now it's dead. And through this, they encounter other types of loss as well. They probably lose their customers. Okay, they can't make their deliveries, and you can't personally help them, right? You can't pack. You're not a pack animal. You're not an animal, right? Say, or let's say another case. a woman who becomes bereft of her husband, okay, and she doesn't have any other form of sustenance. She was relying on her husband to take care of her. And when you give her a little bit of money, she could go ahead and start some little business for herself. And all of these types of little examples. Okay, it's such a great big mitzvah to just give them the help they need to get going. In some cases, this would be like some startup money. And he says this is even pointed out in the Midrash in Vayikra Rabbah, where it says Malveh Hashem v'zonin dal. Hashem is the lender of last resort for those who take pity on the person whose soul has been crushed. And so too it says the case of the person who was very righteous, Binyamin HaTzadik. So he also was giving loans to people who needed it. And consider further that not only is it stated in the halacha, but even the halachic decisors who have come later, if you find a job for this desperate person to profit, in which they can profit, and anything like that, you find them a job whereby they can pay their bills, and you have made the connection that gives them the help they need, and through that they can be sustained. That's what we're referring to when we say v'hachazak tabo as a separate mitzvah. You have given them strength, whatever it is. And this is also sort of a veiled rebuke, while also being an open rebuke. So when people come to them and they say they're destitute, and they know for a fact that they generally hire a certain worker or a certain schlepper, right? Maybe they need a certain Uber driver, or taxi driver, somebody with a van or with a truck, right? And they need them to haul something, or they need them to courier services. Well, they're like, I can hire the cheapest schlub out there. I need to hire a Jewish person. No, that's not nice. Sometimes you're going to have a person who has a need. Don't just look for the cheapest person, but really, certainly focus on making sure that you get help to Jewish people who have the greatest need. Okay? And it's also, as we mentioned earlier, that a person who becomes really desperate, you should give them strength, that they should live with you. Right? We said, "V'hechazak bo v'chay achicha imach," and that person can live with you. So even if you know for a fact that he's wealthy, it may not be hechazak bo that you're pulling him out of destitution. Nonetheless, you should still know that when it comes to doing business transactions, you should always transact with a Jewish person ahead of anyone else, even non-Jews. And he says, I'm going to quote the Sifra. He says that that's exactly what you need to do. And so too, we find in the responsa of the Ramah, number 10. So, even if there's a difference between getting some money that's cheaper from the non-Jew versus from the Jew, it's still better to do business with the Jew. Okay? And he says the reason it is because he's talking about this in section 1 in chapter 5. And it was mentioned in number 6 over there. Okay, we talked about that over there in terms of how to build, who gets precedence in receiving loans. So too, if you have a Jewish person who's a poor worker, of course you should make sure that you support him and sustain him. It's also important for someone to be trusting in Hashem, the Ahavas time continues, because this means that you are able to fulfill this mitzvah of strengthening the poor person, v'hechazak boy, because this is really the primary point of the mitzvah of tzedakah as well. Because we say further in the laws of tzedakah that we just quoted, 249, number 6, that a person should continue to be successful and continue to expand their own home based on the amount of tzedakah they themselves are giving. And this is beyond whatever reward they would be receiving in Olam Haba. They should continue to be successful in Olam Hazeh as well. So the Ahavas Chaim says, I've given you a number of examples here as the reader, and for me as the orator, to look at ways in which you can strengthen this desperate person. And you should make some intelligent extensions from this. Draw some analogies. And it's so important that this mitzvah of strengthening others is not a one-time dealio, right? I give you a loan, that's my gulas chesed. Yeah, it's not. No. Until they are pulled out of their destitution, you are obligated to continue to pursue for them a solution. Because you can't have them, chas v'shalom, completely collapse. They shouldn't lose their house, they shouldn't lose X, Y, Z. And he says that this is exactly what the Torah says, that even if you have strengthened the person 4 or 5 times, am I supposed to do? Yeah, not to be a one-time dealio, exactly. Exactly. How do you know? So the Ahavas Chaim says, from the Torah, how do you know that even if you've given them 4 or 5, lifts, from pulling them up, and they keep falling down, you keep lifting them up, that you have to go and lift them up again? Because it says, strengthen them. Okay? So it says it in the present tense. Keep doing it until they are strengthened. So that is the end of section 21. So we will pick up with 22 for next week. So part 2 finishes with 24. Then part 3 has 8 sections, but I do believe that it's talking about Hasorchim. I do think that they are a little bit shorter. I might be able to get through 2 at a time, but we'll have to see. As of right now, we just finished section 21. And so we're almost done with all these rules over here. And so, like I said, part 3, we're going to talk about some more things like having guests and Bikur Cholim and, things of that nature. Okay? Things that are done, other types of chesed that are done to people that are not the type of chesed we've been talking about, that are specifically to help poverty. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we will continue next week.